and welcome to the special episode of the Shift with CJ podcast. Why is it special? Because I have a beautiful woman sitting in this studio, and we're going to talk to you about something not so different, but something really important. Today, we're going to talk about nutrition, supplementation, and probably clear out some of the myths, talk to you about real world scenarios on what you should do, because I believe that the nutrition and supplement industry is huge. And by it being huge, that means there's a lot of faulty information available online. And if you go on Google and search something and they have a good SEO, turns out that you get bad advice and bad information. And that's why today on the show, we have Kiara. Kiara, welcome to the show.
Hi, CJ. Thank you so much for having me here. It's
Oh,
my
it's a
pleasure.
pleasure. So we have you especially today to clear this out. Now, tell me what's now let's give people a little bit of background about you. Tell me why nutrition, why are you here to talk about nutrition, um, what fascinates you about nutrition, why are you interested about nutrition?
Well, let's make it easy. First of all, I'm a big foodie, so I've I've
That
always
solves it.
I've always loved everything related to food. So of course, that's my biggest passion, along with wellness as well. So that's why throughout the years, I've dig much more into everything related to how we can. Eat well to live well and to think well, and I think nutrition plays a big role in this, because basically food is medicine. So there's so much more that we can do, from the way we choose our foods, to make sure that we have a healthier and longer life and better lifestyle. So personally, like, my background is a bit varied, but starting from fitness and wellness, I dig much deeper into whatever we need as supplementation as well in our daily life, because unfortunately, unlike earlier generations in the past, and how we used to live also, yeah, just until a few generations ago, we do not get all the nutrients from the food as we used to, for many different reasons. So that's why it's important to understand what we need to get in terms of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, to support our daily nutrition. And unfortunately, because of how society developed, and what are the foods that we have more easily available nowadays, we just do not get all the important nutrients that our bodies need. That's why we
We're
develop
talking about this.
more deficiencies. Exactly, exactly. So yeah.
So why, like you mentioned that because of the way societies are developing, we're not having the right amount of nutrition. So is this like, give us an example, is this because of uh, one reason or many reasons, or
Yeah, well, first of all, in terms of economic economic development, like, we now are consuming much more packaged products. So
Mhm.
this is how the food industry developed to make it easier for us to have quickly available foods
Mhm.
available at the stores, to that are also packed in preservatives, in chemicals, just to make sure that they can stay longer on the shelf. So there is, from a business point of view, much more interest in having foods that last longer. And then again, also because of this global market, nowadays the foods that we have are not strictly delivering from, like, coming from the ground that we live
Mhm.
into. So they're undergoing so much more transportation, so much
Mhm.
more time, from the time that we have actually the food get like collected from the soil to coming to our tables.
Yep.
So all this time, all this transportation as well, is making so that even the fresh vegetables and fruits that we are eating are depleted in the minerals and the vitamins that we're eating. On top of that, the soil itself that
Mhm.
we are getting the foods from is also much more depleted, compared to as it used to be
Yeah.
back in the days. So it has less vitamins, less minerals. That's why now there's so many studies and research is actually going on,
Mhm.
trying to understand how to preserve the right life of the soil, and making sure that we can actually have the right nutrients from it. So yeah.
The soil is very interesting because I think one of the, like, people keep asking, or there, I'm a part of these conversations where people say, if you eat your food normally, then chances are you don't have to take any
Correct.
supplements. And if you're taking too many supplements, then you're fake and
Correct.
you're a bad person. But
That's usually the main misconception. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like,
and that's the one thing that I keep telling them. I'm telling them, guys, listen, 50 years ago, if you had to eat a carrot, now you have to eat
exactly.
like 10 carrots for getting
Exactly.
the same nutrients. And like,
Absolutely.
when was the last time you ate 10 carrots in a row? So that doesn't happen much. And the soil that we live on, we're over farming it, we're filling it with
It's
pesticides,
very, yeah,
insecticides,
toxic.
things like glyphosate. All of these things are constantly even challenging our bodies. So there's one part that the soil is not that great, and the second part is that the environment is full of not pristine air, but
Yeah,
a lot of these toxins and heavy metals that are coming from exhaust fumes of your car, from constant construction that's going on in your neighborhood. And
yeah,
when you're breathing all of these things, it puts your body under a greater stress to deal with a lot of these chemicals. And if you don't support your body with something even greater, which is maybe an antioxidant, probably you would have like maybe you'd have a vitamin juice or vitamin C juice, or let's say like orange juice. But is
yeah,
that enough to detox all of these things and to give you enough
yeah,
energy? Maybe 20 years ago, yes, or 40 years ago, yes, but today it's not.
yeah,
So this is why, guys, if you're investing the time, energy, money, and resources to enhance your health via supplementing something, don't put it as a tag that it's bad or is good or is, you know don't judge things. it's,
yeah.
it's easier.
It's interesting what you're saying also about heavy metals because again, nowadays all of us are
Mhm,
completely exposed to heavy metals and we have it in our bodies. So it's normal. It's
mhm,
not, but until to a certain point. So if our bodies don't have enough of the right nutrients that we need, it's harder
mhm.
for them to deplete these heavy metals. So we
Yeah.
have to understand how to do that. And antioxidants, for example, play a big role in
Mhm.
this.
So what else, like we spoke about, like why supplements, why supplementation? What's the best diet in the world?
Hmm. The best diet in the world. There's no diet.
Oh no,
There's no
you just
diet.
most of the people who were looking for that one answer just logged out. Ah, Kiara,
Yeah.
I thought you will give us some magic diet. So
Mm,
you mean that there is no best diet in the world?
yeah. So what I would say is, unfortunately, fortunately, the
Yeah.
best thing is really not to get strict on
Mhm,
one specific diet because usually when we talk about diet, we talk about cutting off something. So
mhm,
why would we cut off something if we first of all have to understand what what we are taking and what is it good for?
mhm,
So I want to now take the time maybe to get many of the listeners upset, but I want
mhm,
to say that we have first of all to understand why we're doing something and for what purpose. Because again, for a weight loss purpose, we might, for example, cut on carbs because it's easy. We might get on a keto diet because it helps us to lose weight faster. But it's also very important on this point to understand, okay, that carbs are not the enemy if we
mhm.
are going on a
Thank
keto
God you
diet.
said that.
So what, like, and usually this is what I see is the main misconception as well for like big keto
Mhm,
keto fans, but that is not the point. Like, it makes it easier for people that have not that much knowledge to approach a specific lifestyle because it's
mhm,
easier to cut on something, so it just makes it easier to follow a specific pattern in your daily life. But again, like saying carb is the enemy in this sense does not help because carbs are anyway the main source of fuel for our body and are essential to provide us with glucose, to provide us with the right energy. But then what is very important, for example, in this case to understand is that it's not carbs that have to be avoided, is refined carbs and
mhm.
sugars that are the main evil, let's say.
Enemies.
Okay, exactly. So in that case, then I might say, okay, well, to make it easier to understand, okay, that's why for example, a keto diet might be more beneficial. But
Mhm.
first of all, let us try to understand why and for what
Mhm.
purpose.
Okay, that's super interesting. First, I also agree with you that there's no best diet in the world. Your diet or the kind of food requirements you have will depend on what kind of individual biochemical code, DNA, RNA requirements, sports, whatever, sleep you have, and
Yes.
what you're trying to do. Kiara, just like Kiara said, it depends. It's context dependent on what you're trying to
Hormonal
do.
balance as well,
Bigger
because
one.
now all this fashion about intermittent fasting as well, I completely understand and approve and the benefits of intermittent fasting, and but again, depending on your personality and your hormonal balance, for example, already between women and men there's a lot of difference. So for example, women cannot tolerate, generally speaking, the same amount of fasting hours that a man can, just because our hormones,
Mhm.
female hormones, are much more sensitive and are different than male bodies, for example. So it also comes down to how much every single person, of course, is reacting to very specific.
Also, did you know that 80% of the fasting studies, 80% of all fasting studies that have been done, and which results people take a screenshot and share with others, and a lot of people use it to influence people into getting into intermittent fasting, are all done on men.
Uh-huh.
And
There we
the
go.
and the 20% data that we have on women is coming from the last 10 years. So we don't have enough data for to safely say that first women can push it same as men, because biologically, when there's time when there's lack of food availability, your evolutionary I mean, everyone who's listening to this, think of this from the cell's point of view. Your cells with evolution, they have developed, but their thinking pattern still stays the same. So back in the day, if you were living in a village or a tribe and there was lack of food, which meant famine, which meant long periods of time without food, what would be the first thing that you don't need to do? The first thing that you don't need to do is to reproduce and to bring more humans, because there's no more food in the world. And this is one reason why a female's body naturally would start not being optimal, not being fertile enough. And when fertility doesn't work well, you don't reproduce. So these are some of the things that we need to understand in modern context, because I speak to a lot of women, and women can fast for 16, 18, 20 hours, but not every day. That
Yes.
doesn't work. Once in a while you do it and it's fine. But if you want, I speak to a lot of women and they follow the same advice as men's, and what their hair stops falling, then they have to look into like a thyroid test, their
Yeah,
fertility
progesterone,
stops.
estrogen
Yeah.
imbalance, and
So that's complex hormones that you don't want
yeah.
to play with. Well, to start off safer, do you have a minimum or like a minimum or a maximum recommendation time for women to fast?
Yeah, so usually it should be around 12 hours.
Oh, I
Yeah,
agree. I completely agree. It
yeah.
should be around 12 hours. Uh,
Whereas men can push it up
yeah,
to 16, 18
men,
easily, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah,
16 for
very
us
easily.
is not that big of a deal. And what happens is men mostly have other characteristics that help support this more. Let's say, for example, they have huge bone mass, their heights are taller, physical attributes, strength, agility,
Yeah,
muscle mass,
yeah.
all of these things are more. So if when you compare men and women, I mean, some women are, you shouldn't directly compare them, but if physical characteristics you can. And this physical characteristics in men are much more that indeed support them. And with evolution, like, the theory is that men were always like the hunter gatherers, so they went out there long periods of time, no food, nothing, and they hunted to bring food back.
Yeah.
But the women, they were sitting at home. Men probably, they had some food from last night and they were still feeding their young child. So women in a classical context always had more food availability than men. So
Yes,
so yeah, this is one of those things
absolutely.
where you know there are a lot of studies and a lot of data and a lot of uh, let's say infographics. But I would highly encourage people to, if you're trying to get into a diet, uh, check with someone like an expert like Kiara herself on, you know, I'm trying to start this. Like, it could be a general conversation, if you're friends with someone like this, or you want to hire someone like this. make sure you have someone who's experienced enough to look and guide you through this, because these things might look simple and might not look dangerous, but the repercussions of these things after some time can be intense, and you don't
Yes.
want that, right? Because how long does it take to fix hormones?
Yes.
Long time, correct?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's not fun.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in that boat. I've been in that boat, Kiara, like years ago. I was so strict about the ketogenic diet. I would not, like, carbs were the enemy for me. I belonged to the keto bros camp. It worked out for some way, but then, man, the kind of like messiness that happens, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
Like, trust me, it's not
I
the
had almost the opposite experience in my younger age, because I was more, okay, carbs are great for energy, but I'm gonna cut on fats. I'm not gonna eat fats
oh
because
yeah.
fats make me fat. So I'm just not gonna have anything like any.
You, along with the billions of people, millions of people around the world.
So I was exactly on the other side, and for me that was the best thing. And I was feeling, it was feeling like I was feeling amazing. It
Yeah.
felt great, and then I realized until like a few years ago that no, actually we
Mm,
need fats,
yeah.
and these are the most important things for our brain, because just our brain is made like 60%
Yeah.
of fat. So if we do not have fat, like fat, our memory function, it gets
Yeah.
impaired. Like we have not ability to focus. We it's also our membranes, like our cell membranes are made
Out of
mainly
that.
by fat. So we have to understand always
But what kind of
where
fat
is
are you
the,
talking about?
well,
Is there
exactly.
like a category? Like,
Yes,
is
I'm
every fat okay, or
absolutely not. So we have exactly, if we think maybe about fat, the first thought can come to fries or KFC or anything, but like trans fats and saturated fats are definitely the thing that we have to avoid. So and the best source of unsaturated fats, and the easiest one, of course, that maybe might come to your mind is omega 3
Mhm.
fatty acids. So we're maybe getting too much or too many omega 6 fatty acid
Mhm.
compared to omega 3. But omega 3 is the main source, and this we can have it either in supplement form, but also in our daily nutrition. So where we
Mhm.
get it mostly from is fish, and that is, for coming to to the supplement conversation, one of the main thing that we should have on a daily basis.
Like a good quality fish oil.
Exactly.
You know, one of the markers for longevity, which you can go in a clinic and test, is your omega 6 to omega 3 ratio.
Ratio.
And normally, anything for anyone who's listening, a regular ratio of 4 to 1, which means 4 omega 6 index to 3 omega 4 to 2 omega 3 index would be good, and like higher things of 6 or 7 can be good. But unfortunately, these days, normally the ratio is 42 to 1 or 42
Wow.
to 2. So that is killing it. And again, like Kiara mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, when you're eating these things which are, processed,
Correct.
packaged, all the things which are not carefully designed, well, some processed and packaged food, for an argument, could be great, but uh, depends on how much.
What is the
Yeah, what
quantity,
is the
the
quantity, how they're
frequency?
made, what kind of ingredients are there.
Yeah.
But trust me, if you're walking around, the supermarket, or you're going to the walking around the airport, and then you want to take one of those quick energy bars, which are 60% made with canola oil or something like
Yes,
that,
exactly.
that is
And
not the
that goes
best thing.
exactly to the point that I wanted now to say, because as with carbs, we should cut on sugars,
Mhm,
and with oils and fats, we should definitely cut on seed oils.
mhm.
So these are the most worst enemies, sugars and seed oils. And
Yeah.
there's most of the packaged foods that we have now, they're not only packaged, actually, unfortunately,
Mhm.
sugar and seed oils. If we look in most of the goods that we get at the groceries, if it's packaged, they have it most likely. So we have always to understand what is the amount. If we can most likely, most preferably, get something that is fresh, or
Mhm.
just make it at home, like even conserves, or for example vegetable mixes that are bottled up. We might think, okay, it's good, it's a good sauce that I can mix with my meat, but then if we had the time or the
Yep.
chance, it's just better to cook vegetables, or do them to do
By
create
yourself.
these sauces at home by ourselves,
Mhm.
because the more it's packaged, the more it has both sugar and
And fat. And one of the funny thing is that there's a reason why in all packaged foods, like you rightly said, that you will find a combination of fats and sugar together. And this doesn't happen by coincidence, because flavor scientists all around the world know one thing, that never in evolution there was a mixture of two macronutrients. No matter where you see, you're not going to find these two coherent together in natural food. One is high amounts of sugar, whether it's fructose or fiber is sugar, and high amounts of fat. These things in nature don't exist. So when you eat something like this, which has never existed in evolution, then it turns on a lot of these dopamine signaling pathways in the brain, which is your
True.
pleasure and reward circuit, because you've never had it. So this time when you have it, your body wants to accumulate more of it, thinking that you're never
Yes.
going to have it again.
And it creates
So
that addiction.
yes, so that's the addictive part of it. That's why when you combine these two things together, and flavor scientists all around the world, they know this. So when and they particularly keep this mixture in
Yeah.
everything, and that's why sometimes when I'm walking around somewhere, and if I want to have a energy bar, I can't stop with one, so I want to go for the other one.
True, true, true. Yeah, same with any sort of snack. Unfortunately, they're good. We might think even if they're healthy, again, as you say, no, we need to check the labels, because if we have it and then very likely the next half an hour get hungry again, it doesn't mean that we have, I mean, hopefully
Yeah,
we have a fast metabolism, so it burns off everything.
yeah,
But if in the next half an hour we're hungry again,
yeah,
most likely it happens because the sugars
yeah.
in the product, or the chemicals, the processed ingredients, make it so that the glucose spikes up, and we have this hunger feeling again that
Mhm.
makes us want for more, even if we wouldn't need for it.
So how do people, like, let's say most of the people, if they're listening to this show and they're in their office and they wanted to go for this meeting, and they had like a, let's say, energy bar or something like that, and in 30 minutes within the meeting their hunger starts rising again. What do they do? Like, what's the fix for this? Like, if you are sort of like getting that hunger again, is it better not to eat it at all? Or if you have it, like, have you found something that works?
Usually, in terms of snacking, if of course processed food or packaged goods is the easiest thing if we are at the office to get. But
Yeah.
um, if we can have a drink, as in tea or tea, or like everything, like tea or coffee can be a good
Mhm.
option, just to stop the craving in the meantime. And then if it comes to snacking, then the best thing would always, if we have the chance to get fresh whole food ingredients, like
Mhm.
whole foods, and combine the like proteins with fats before we actually go into anything that is strictly carbs,
Mhm.
just because, again, what we want to try to avoid is this glucose spike that are mainly the most relevant one, causing this like sort of oxidative stress, and creating this hunger feeling as well.
Mhm.
So
What about another macronutrient? Not macronutrient, but like, it's also I would consider it as a macronutrient, which a lot of people miss often, which is fiber. How do
yes.
you what's your thought on fiber?
So fiber is one of the most important things that we need to have, and we have it in like whole wheat grains,
Mhm.
and it's very important to. That's why also it comes to the whole conversation we were having earlier on about carbs and
Mhm.
understanding which ones to cut and which ones to have. And fibers are also very big. They're found very easily in nuts and seeds. So that is the most important thing to have to feed properly our gut as well, to make sure
Mhm.
that we have the right um yes, the right
Good
functioning,
micro, yeah.
exactly. Like,
Interesting. Yeah. So I think this is one of the formulas that I used to always follow, is whether that, and I think I learned it from a guy in the US, is big in the keto space. His name is Ben Azadi. Yeah, Ben Azadi. It's called some detective, the health detective, something like that. But he told me that one of the best things you can do is have this formula called PFF, which is protein, fats, and fiber.
mhm.
So if you have like protein, fats, and fiber combined, this by itself will kill off most of your hunger, because we know that
Yes.
protein, um, group of proteins, mostly animal based, is very satiating. So it increases a lot of this feel full kind of feeling. Then you have the fat that, Kiara said, can help with mental performance, mental balance, hormonal balance. And then the fiber that feeds the third most important thing in your body, which is this ecosystem of bacteria that we have in our gut called the gut microbiome, which are about, if we can think about the human cells as being 32 trillion, then the gut microbiome is way above
Yeah.
100 trillion. They're an ecosystem of their own, and they do important things such as synthesize vitamins. They, provide us for feel good chemicals, neurochemicals, hormones. When you get that gut feeling, it doesn't start in your brain, it actually starts in your gut and then
Yes.
goes to your brain.
Exactly.
And
Because serotonin is also the most
yes,
amount of serotonin is
yeah,
produced in the
about
gut.
90%.
Yeah.
So this
True.
was quite surprising for me, that
Yes.
the one neurotransmitter which is called serotonin, which is, mostly people equate it to happy hormone or bliss hormone or something like that. 90% of that is actually formulated in your gut, and only 10% of it is formulated in your brain. And the nerve fibers that transmit signals from your gut up to your brain are 90% more denser than the ones that transmit from your brain to your gut. So the gut brain connection is actually much more stronger than the brain gut connection per se.
That's why we have to listen to our gut feeling.
Yeah, but how many people do you see or do you know who are actually listening to their gut?
Yes.
Do you have a lot
It
of people
happens
in your
all the
network?
time. It happens very
Oh,
often that
cool.
people say, I had this
Yeah.
gut feeling, and but it
But do they act on it?
well, yeah, that depends. We have to dig
Yeah,
into
I
this.
guess sometimes it also depends on a lot of childhood programming, because as children are much more sensitive, and they would often have this gut feeling, or their muscle of intuition is also very strong. But what happens is, an adult says, oh, that's nothing, just,
Yes, we
leave it.
tend
And
to
then
listen more to our rational.
exactly, so we sort of think that, that's not going to make sense, because if you tell someone like, hey, listen, we're not going to put stocks in this company, and if they ask you why, or buy stocks of this company, yeah, because there is this feeling in me that says no, like
Yeah,
my gut feeling says no.
yeah,
Most people are now going to accept it, and they're going to ask for numbers. So I
yeah,
think we live in a collective society of people that looks more on the left oriented, left channel brain, which is the more rational,
yeah.
than the sort of right sort
Yes,
of a
whereas
brain.
both of them are very important, and
Yeah.
that's why it makes sense. And yeah, this is why it's very important that these neurotransmitters like serotonin have to be supported by the right enzymes, coenzymes, and the
Mhm.
right foods that we are having, because everything comes down to how we fuel this and
Yeah.
how we fuel ourselves. So,
What do you take a fiber supplement by
sorry.
do you take any fiber supplementation?
Specifically, fiber supplementation, I don't take
Yeah,
because I'm really having my like everyday diet very, very filled with the
fiber. Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
nuts,
I tried
seeds, and
to do a lot of fibers in the middle, mostly prebiotic fiber. And I
hmm
saw lots of research, if you can get your prebiotic fiber up to 60 grams,
hmm
and it could be good, but like 60 grams of fiber from food would be like insane. So
a big
yeah,
amount.
I tried it and it was really good. Like for 2 months, I just couldn't keep up with. But
Hmm
anyway, let's talk about like um so you are obviously an expert in nutrition and supplementation. What are your favorite supplements? Like what, or let's say, let's hear about, or let's like make it more interesting. Let's hear about a day in your life. Tell us how, like, what happens from the time you wake up to the time you sleep. Tell us about any supplements that come in, any kind of like things that you do for yourself that people can learn from, any best practices, any things that you
Yeah.
know optimize you.
So mm, I might say what I take, or not, but then again, every journey and every person is very specific.
Mhm.
So of course, there's some supplements that are generally more recommended for everyone, and some others that is better to be tried on your own and see also how you feel, and see and understand first of all why you're taking them, because mm, of course they all have different functions, and we need to test them for a prolonged
Mhm.
time amount of time to make sure that we actually see the benefits, especially for everything that is related to natural supplements like nootropic bricks,
Mhm.
and we can have a talk about that later as well. But to make sure that like specific supplements cross this blood brain barrier,
Mhm.
we have to make sure that we take them for a prolonged amount of time, and taking them just for a couple of weeks doesn't really make
Mhm.
that much of a change. So we would
Okay,
need to
interesting.
take them for a longer time, which is minimum an amount of 3 months onwards.
Mhm.
The If we make it simple, the main supplements that we would need to take on a daily routine, which are my like daily intake,
Go
are
to, yeah.
omega 3,
Mhm.
as we said before, vitamin C, because it's a very strong antioxidant, and then we have
How many, can I cut you there? How much of vitamin C are you taking every day?
I'm taking around maximum, yeah, 1,000 milligrams.
1000 milligrams. Okay.
Yeah. Then we have vitamin D3, which is very important. We have a very big deficiency, generally speaking, because we're not really that much exposed to sun as we used to be back in the days. And then, okay, vitamin D3 with vitamin K2 are also very important for the right absorption and regulation of calcium in our
Mhm.
body. So that is also very important to think of. And magnesium.
Mhm.
So magnesium is also maybe very much underrated and not that used, but magnesium is one of those components that our body needs the most, especially when we are more exposed to stress.
Yeah.
And so it's important to understand which one to take and also when to take it, and many people can actually not even tolerate it that much. So then
Mhm.
allergy is a bit less frequent, but tolerance and is not really for everyone. So then we can have good substitutes of
Mhm.
magnesium as well. They can be, for example, 5-HTP
Uh-huh.
or L-theanine, which
Okay.
is a very good
What's your
component for
favorite kind of magnesium? Because from my understanding, there are 8 different types of
glycinate. Is the
glycinate.
best
Okay.
one, that is really the most
Okay.
bioavailable one
Yeah.
that can be.
Yeah. So
There's
I
some
I have the
magnesium.
same. I use no, but I use sometimes I use Citrid during the day and bisglycinate in the evening because it also helps you sleep because of the glycine molecule attached.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
So
So
that's for everyone who's taking notes. Those are the two nice ones. For brain performance, also I like L-threonate. I don't use it much, but L-threonate is acts much more readily in the brain, crosses the blood-brain barrier, if I can speak, much easier. Yeah, so we've got fish oil. Any
yes.
specific brands you recommend? Anything that
Oof,
people should
here in the
worry
UAE, this is a
about?
good question. I usually ship them from the States, if I can
Okay.
say that.
Yeah.
I think I'm not really sure now of the brand that I use. Maybe Now is the most popular one.
Yeah.
Not really sure if
I
you
always
have
sell.
someone a good one that you would recommend of your.
Super. I used to use one company from United States called Superfish. That was one. And then now, right now, I'm using an Australian company that I can't recall the name of. But regardless,
Mm.
two things that I think are very important that you should be looking for when you're looking for fish oil is high amounts of something called as EPA and DHA. These are the essential fatty acids in the fish. If you can have anything upwards of, you know, 600 to 800 mg, that would be the best per capsule, or depending on the dose, but higher amounts of EPA and DHA would be the best call. And if you could go online and check for some reviews, if the fish, because one of the biggest thing in fish oil industry is that most of the fish oil that people sell and people get become oxidized or rancid.
Yes.
So depending on which supplement manufacturer you choose, make sure you try to like Google a little bit on Reddit or something, so you understand if those fish oil have been oxidized or rancid. But other than that, most ethical companies will source good ones.
Absolutely.
So we got magnesium, we got fish oil, then we
Yes.
got
Vitamin C, vitamin
D
D.
with K2. Okay,
Yes. And I would
and
say we can.
that's pretty
That's
much it.
already pretty
Is
much
that
enough, especially if someone is not taking anything at
Mhm.
all. So it's important to have that on a daily basis because also most of them are not really produced by our own body. For example, vitamin
Mhm.
C,
Yeah.
or with age, our body is not is just decreasing its own production. So this is
Mhm.
why.
Even magnesium, like you said, if you have a stress out day, your levels of magnesium will definitely be depleted. So
Yes. Yeah.
if you're stressed out, if you're around a lot of electromagnetic frequencies, if you're traveling, any kind
If
of
we
effort.
are drinking,
Oh
smoking,
yeah,
having sugars, magnesium again is depleted in our body.
yeah,
So that's why it comes to really understanding how can I get more of it, because
yeah,
we most of us in our daily life we're having these things.
yeah.
So it's very important to.
Do you know any natural sources of a lot of magnesium? I knew cacao nibs had one. Cacao nibs have
Um,
some, but
yes, but also every like leafy green is a very good
good source of
source of
magnesium.
magnesium.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. What about so these are five basic supplements. What about lifestyle habits? What do you recommend people to do as a minimum, or like what's either the gold standard or the minimum according to you that people should do every day?
Also here, if we really make it simple, the most important thing for everyone is just to get out of the house and get exposed to fresh air and sun. And unfortunately, also fresh air, we don't really have it everywhere, and we live here in a country where we're very much exposed to dust, to
Mhm.
sand, to humidity, that make it so likely that first of all, the sun rays are not really the good sun rays are not really absorbed into our skin that much
Mhm.
because of these sand particles in the air. This is why we are also, most of us.
What if you put
Sunscreen
sunscreen?
is perfect and we have to have it, but
Mhm.
that is just to block the bad UV rays of the sun. But we still would need to get a daily exposure of around 15 minutes minimum to the sun
Wow.
on a daily basis if you really want to have good amounts of vitamin D into our bodies. So get out, have fresh air, be exposed to sun, and be active in this way is the best one. So
Mhm.
even just daily walks is the very easiest thing, and to do that early in the morning is also what can help us to
Get
stabilize
some
our
sunlight.
circadian
Yeah.
rhythm and really make sure that we have the right activity and the right
Mhm.
awakeness to face the day.
So we've got, for people who are taking notes, you've got to be active. You've got to go take things like a walk, get ample amounts of sunlight. And what was the last thing you said? You said one more thing. It was sunlight,
Um, we can
movement,
add it if we didn't have.
and fresh air.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
so fresh air.
This is really the basics, and we don't do it as much as we should do.
Mm,
And then, of course, when it goes to the right way to keep fit and to be active and do
mhm.
workouts, that's also an added component to making sure that we stay younger and
Yeah.
healthier, and that we keep our muscles active and young by activating them. And this is one of the very best anti-stressors as well,
Mhm.
to make sure that we have a proper um, fitness routine in this sense as well.
Yeah, lots of endorphins. Like for people who, I hope people who are listening to this episode, all of you guys work out. But if one of you don't, then uh, if you do work out, you'll have a lot of this boost of chemicals that make you feel great. They're called endorphins, and that's a real thing. They also reduce pain, and overall exercise can help you reduce inflammation. It can help you sleep better. Oh, while we're on the topic of sleep, any specific things? Because we did a we did not like we did a study, but we looked at a lot of meta-analysis, and we saw that 80% of most cities
Mhm.
in their sleep, either sleep deprived or their sleep
Exactly.
quality is
So
not good.
sleep, maybe we've been talking a lot about food and supplementation, but sleep maybe comes even one step ahead of that. So
Mhm.
if we don't sleep well, or if we have disrupted sleep, or we don't sleep enough, that's the main thing that affects our health.
Hmm.
So we have to make sure that we get a good amount of sleep, and the hours of sleep around minimum 7 8 hours per night
Hmm.
is a good restful sleep. So this is also something that is very like affecting a majority of the population, also not being able to relax enough. And maybe here it comes also to you and your ways that you can
Yeah.
support with the specific red light therapy,
Yeah.
or avoiding specific like tools and
And
phone at
magnesium,
night.
like
Yes,
magnesium could
exactly.
be
And the
great for
magnesium as
sleep.
absolutely.
Anything that can help you relax. And yeah, sleep is such a universe on its own, because you could be doing so many small things here and there. But if I had to tell someone on the on this podcast, simple things would be: keep your room completely dark at night, like completely. You can't even have the charger that is plugged into the wall have some light. Block it, because your skin has something called as photoreceptors, which are called melanocyte receptors, and your skin can detect light. So even if you have your eye mask on, your skin will
Yes.
detect some light. Shut off all the screens, detach all the wireless technology you have. Keep your phones on airplane
Yes.
mode. uh,
And we shouldn't actually get any caffeine the 8 hours before
yeah,
going to
big
sleep.
one, big one. 8 hours. The half life of caffeine seems to be about 6 hours, and depending on how your liver enzymes. So you could, with caffeine, there's always two scenarios. There, you could either be a fast metabolizer, which a lot of people are. Are you a fast metabolizer? Like, can you get rid
I
of
don't think
coffee
so.
fast?
I think I
Okay.
used to be before, but not that
Yeah,
much.
I'm a very slow metabolizer, and for people like us, yeah, 8 to 10 hours is
Yes.
like
Yes.
minimum.
And I feel that again in the afternoon, if we're having too many coffees in the afternoon, that's also already the immediate response to why we're getting a disrupted sleep at
Hmm.
night. And if we do and we're still used to and we really need that to go on at work, a good combination to avoid the jitters and maybe also these like offsets of caffeine is combining the drink with some L-theanine after,
L-theanine,
yes,
beautiful.
combined. And this is really, really making sure that the effects of caffeine are a bit less
Yeah,
jittery as at least.
yeah.
So yeah.
So if you're listening to this, take another note. Combine caffeine or coffee with L-theanine, which is, you could get it in a supplement form. You
Exactly.
could get it
Yeah.
into a powder form. Super small. You don't have to use so much. And I believe it comes. It's an amino acid derived from green tea, and green tea is chock full of
Yes.
it. Cool. So we covered all of these things, but some time ago you said the word nootropics. Now, me and you probably know what nootropic is, but like, can you explain to people who don't know what
Yes.
is a nootropic?
So now it's still quite a new argument, I would say, but there's still so much more research that has been done on it now
Hmm.
recently. So we've been and we're gonna hear it much more.
Hmm.
Nootropics and adaptogens are two words that are now
Adaptogens.
getting much more used. Most like they're used somehow and sometimes together,
Hmm.
but and some of them actually like are sort of intertwined. But what nootropics mainly are basically the way to support the oxygen and the glucose to our brain, basically. So
Hmm.
it's different compounds that support this feeding in our brain of oxygen and glucose. And we have different nootropics, and I think nootropics are very much how do you say confused with the smart drugs.
Hmm.
It's
So
two
that's a good
different
thing. Yeah.
things because the nootropics are natural compounds,
Hmm.
whereas smart drugs are usually the synthetic
Hmm.
compounds of it. So by that I mean things like modafinil
Hmm.
and Adderall, which have been
Have you tried both
proved.
of them?
Actually not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not against, and I would
Yeah.
never say no to anything
Yeah.
before even trying. So I'm not that type of
Modafinil is
person.
quite powerful. I
Yeah.
use modafinil. I wouldn't say regularly, but occasionally in times when you really like. I mean, you're traveling different time zones. You have to keep yourself up. It does a very, very good job. And one in, I think, 90,000 people might have like a reaction. So the reaction, the like, let's say the negative effects aren't as much,
Mm,
although it does deplete some of your choline receptors, so you have to eat more cholinogenic foods after that.
mm,
But if you haven't tried, I mean, and this is not an advice from me to everyone, it about a nootropic, but there are times and places for each of them. So one of the smart drugs nootropics, especially in the military and some of these special forces, it's a very big staple because of its ability to make you completely alert, completely focus, and completely be like off track.
absolutely.
So sometimes when there is a hard day ahead and I know that I really want to give it my all, uh, occasionally I'll like have a modafinil and like really go at it. But yeah, carry on.
Interesting.
Modafinil is one of the smart
Exactly.
drugs.
So that one, along with adrenaline, and again, it's been used for years, but they are synthetic. So this is why it's a bit more sensitive to talk about them, just because
Mhm.
they can create more addiction and more
Yeah.
toxicity in our bodies, which is harder
Adderall
to
is
get rid
shit.
of.
Like, excuse my language, but Adderall is completely shit. That's something that you shouldn't. I mean, most of the people, like, even in the smart drugs category, like people who are conscious enough, like, avoid uh, Adderall. There are much more and much better smart drugs out there, like modafinil, like paracetam, like so many more. But yeah,
Mhm.
that one is not the best.
Okay.
Makes you crazy.
See, yeah.
Yeah, but
And
nootropics,
yeah,
yeah.
and natural nootropics are just that's why they're good, because they're natural. They don't create any addiction, and they can support still our
Brain and our
neurotransmitters. Yes,
performance.
and so which ones? When it comes to which ones, it's also here that's where it comes to trying them on our own, because
Mhm.
each of our own body needs maybe more specific ones than others. But then again, the what they're most important for is really to increase our memory, our focus, our mood as well,
Mhm.
and yeah, and our capacity of concentration. So one of maybe one of the most known or common one that we wouldn't think of, and
Caffeine.
yes,
Okay,
exactly, it's
yeah.
caffeine. So we might, okay. And so that is a
Yeah.
nootropic. And so without knowing, we've been definitely using it a lot, I think most of us.
And one of the
But then
most common drugs on the planet, one of the most used drug on the
exactly,
planet is
exactly.
caffeine.
Exactly, but also there, then it comes to how much we're taking, how much our body's tolerating, and then this
Hmm.
is what we were saying before. But then there's many others. So there's the Asian ginseng, and there's ginkgo biloba, there's ashwagandha, there's
Hmm.
so many. There's even nicotine in some of the
Oh, yeah.
studies. They're
Yeah.
showing how it is actually positively affecting our capacity of concentration and focus. And this is why they're actually
Hmm.
developing. I don't know if you've ever tried them, but some of
I've been
devices that
microdosing on nicotine for
e-
many years now.
exactly
Many
just
years.
using the natural
Yeah.
nicotine
Yeah.
command.
So,
That's
like, if
interesting.
you're listening to this and you're wondering if I'm crazy, no, I have I have for years been standing on top of a building and telling nicotine isn't bad, but macrodosing on nicotine, like on cigarettes, is a terrible idea. Vaping nicotine is a terrible idea. So those forms of nicotine aren't good. Nicotine actually comes from a plant, is plant based. It's a natural compound derived from a plant. And when you have microdose, which means about 1 to 2 mg
Mm-hmm.
per session, then it does increase your verbal recall. I did not have it today before this interview because I ran out of it. But you have, nicotine in lozenges, gums, sprays, patches. And if you use 1 or 2 grams before a cognitively demanding task, you feel really good. You might, some people might be a bit sensitive to it. You might go to the toilet once or twice, but
True.
after that, you get really used to it. And I once God, this is like 2 or 3 years ago where I recorded. I mean, I wrote an article and I recorded a video that should be on YouTube. Shift with CJ YouTube with nicotine. Have a look, nicotine benefits or something like that. But nicotine is even in highly performing athletes. They have so many studies where they put them right before their game, and their game performance increases. The only
True.
thing with nicotine is that it stimulates, one of the good things is it stimulates this acetylcholine receptors in the brain, and it attaches to the acetylcholine receptors in the brain, and it enhances dopamine, which is like the reward sort of a pathway,
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot. That's why
Mm-hmm.
people start feeling so good on dopamine and nicotine. The only problem is that just because we always are in this dilemma that if a little bit of something is good, more of that thing will even be better. But with nicotine, that doesn't do
It's
it,
not always the case.
because nicotine is a vasoconstrictor. That means it can constrict blood flow, and blood flow even into the brain. So you don't want to have it too much, but the Goldilocks zone, anywhere between 1 to 4, I've even seen in some studies, are great. So nicotine is a great one. And if you look back at it, all great work in literature, art, painting, any kind of things that have come from, generations ago, was done doing three things, or maybe two things. One was drinking coffee, second thing was smoking. So these two
Yes.
things, the caffeine, and when you combine caffeine and nicotine, this is a very powerful sort of nootropic stat.
Yeah.
So caffeine and nicotine, and that's it. That's what you want to win the games. But
And
yeah.
yeah, and then well, exactly, and then it comes also to adaptogens that we were talking about before, and these
Mhm,
are also natural compounds that help our body to respond to emotional and physical stress.
mhm,
So here, some of them again can be ashwagandha.
mhm.
Um, some of them can be ginkgo biloba as well, as
Mhm.
we discussed before.
Yeah, they commonly have like
Um,
two. Some of them share a lot of properties between nootropics
Yes,
and.
exactly, exactly. And what else? And then yeah, and then it comes to specific other ones like curcumin that is also very
Mhm,
potent antioxidant as
yeah.
well. So it's important that we try cordyceps as well,
So medicinal
maca,
mushroom,
chaga.
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
These are a whole other
Yeah,
category of, let's say, yeah, they'll come under cordyceps, so
yeah.
definitely come under a nootropic and
Exactly.
a adaptogen.
Exactly. So this is why it's interesting. In this case, if we want to approach and see what the benefits are, first of all, to do that for a prolonged period of time,
Hmm.
which goes starting from a minimum of 3 months,
Hmm.
and try them maybe few at a time to see if we
Hmm.
actually feel some benefits and how it can really support us. And this is really the easiest, the best, the most natural way to work
What's your
into
favorite medicinal mushroom?
cordyceps. No,
Cordyceps.
cordyceps are lion's mane is actually one that I've been using
Hmm.
both together because
Hmm. Why do you
co-
like it?
co-
Like, what does it do for you?
um, so that is supporting me to what I'm hoping for now, to my focus and my
Hmm.
capacity, yeah, my capacity
Hmm.
of just concentration mainly.
When are you taking the lion's mane? Are you taking it in the day or in the night?
Usually during the morning, yeah,
During the morning.
yeah.
If you want to run an experiment, but do you wear any sort of like a Aura ring or any
No,
sleep tracking device? So everyone who experiments with lion's mane, I always tell them, like, do an experiment for me, because I just want to collect data.
yeah,
That try having lion's mane at night as well as the morning, but in the night, then just observe the quality of your dreams, and subjectively, because you cannot measure it, try to compare if you're spending more time in like a dreamy state or not. Because for some people, their dreams get more vivid, and they spend more time in REM, which is REM stage
yeah.
of the sleep
When
cycle.
using an
Lion's
lion's
mane. So
mane,
lion's mane also has an effect,
there we
because
go.
in research it shows, because, and if anyone wants to, if you're driving, don't do it, but if you're just listening to this and you have your phone around, just look for a picture of lion's mane. It looks like a brain, a human brain. And when you look at the pharmacokinetics of it, most of the effects of the lion's mane is straight in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, nature has this subtle way of telling us things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in the brain, it increases things like BDNF and nerve growth factor. but I'm super stoked to understand what it does for people with dreams.
Yeah,
So yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting. I might give it a try, definitely.
Yeah, try it for a few days or like a
Just
few
like,
weeks and see how you feel, because uh, and this is important because a lot of people, especially when their stress level goes up, their ability to fall asleep goes down and their ability
yeah,
to dream
and to
goes down as well.
recollect dreams also.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So if lion's mane can be one of those things that can accelerate that, then
yeah,
we want to see, because REM sleep is also associated with how your mood is or how irritable you
yeah,
are, your memory, and your recall.
yes.
So a lot of people are walking around with difficulties in these aspects. So I'm so curious to know, can lion's mane be the next thing? Because a lot of the times, most of the things that you do for REM sleep don't work. So I'm just, personally curious to
Yeah,
know. So
yeah,
every time I meet people who try lion's mane, I
yeah,
just tell them to do this. So
exactly.
let us know what you feel like.
Absolutely. Ready to dream.
So okay, so we spoke about all of these cordyceps again. Super interesting. It helps you get a lot of energy as well.
Yes,
Cordyceps.
true.
Um, yeah. And how do you have this in a supplemental form or in like what kind of
Yes,
form are you
yeah,
using?
supplements are like in pill form, and it's
Okay.
it's just powder, but it's easy just to pop down in the morning when I
Okay.
usually get all of them together. And also here, I want to hear also what your thought on this is. But again, I have a very big amount of supplements that I'm actually taking every day, and
Yeah.
then here there must be usually it comes to many people asking me as well, like, oh, but is it like is there maybe any chance we can overdose, or
Mhm.
do we have like, is it good to take some together, or do we have to take them separate time of the day, and what time in the day? So then there's a lot of
Confusion.
questions and confusion about this as well. So I want to know what your take on this is. But generally speaking, I would say, first of all, we are anyway getting so many different types of molecules from food already
Mhm.
itself, and the way we combine food and different ingredients. So imagine like how many the compounds are in food. So why don't take these extra supplements
Mhm.
as well? And it's not that much of a main issue taking them at different times of the day. The most important thing is anyway in the end just to remember that, to get them consistently
Mhm.
on a daily basis. And then of course, as were suggesting before as well, maybe having a more accurate um, thought on when to use certain supplements, because we
Mhm.
want to see specific reactions in our bodies. Then that might be another conversation. But
Mhm.
generally speaking,
What? Yeah, I get this question a lot as well. But I think one thing that it boils down to is how much are you willing to spend on a supplement? Because depending on how much you're willing to spend, then we can cut off a lot of supplements or add a lot of supplements to the mix. So the first question that people should think about is, and everyone's going to have a different budget. So depending on your budget, fix a budget. Once you have that budget, then look for the most essential ones, like we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. Your vitamin D, your magnesium, your fish oil, all of those things. Then we take it a step further, and now we start analyzing your individual goals. Maybe you have the
exactly.
goal to become a power lifter, and then, or like a bodybuilder, and then your protein requirement, which should also be used in a supplemental form, will increase. Your creatine requirement will also increase. Your glutamine requirement will also increase. Then if you're on a separate goal, which is more of a longevity or an anti-aging, then you're looking at things like PQ, things that we haven't even discussed here: PQQ, MitoQ, NAD plus, all of these weird sort of substances. But they do one specific role. They're not going to help you. They might influence your muscle quality and life, but they're definitely only going to look at how cells rejuvenate. So now the other question to pop is, what exactly am I looking for? Am I looking for just and if some women want to look for beauty, so then you're looking at collagen and
Exactly.
things like glycine. um, but to answer your question, if you have a lot of these things together and it fits your budget, it meets your essentials, and then it also meets your goals, and you have looked, or even like doing it yourself, you might be really smart, but it's always helpful if you ask someone to help you out. And you ask someone to get on board and they shortlist a few. Now maybe you have like 10 or maybe 30 supplements. And if they have good clinical research and you're really feeling something from them, there's no other way. Just right now we don't have the tech to sort of like combine everything in one supplement, but in the future that tech is about to come. There are already so many
Yes.
trials being done. So for
Yeah.
now, what I would like to say is that certain substances are really good when you take them empty stomach, and certain substances are also really good when you take them with food or a fat soluble
Yes.
source. So then you segregate your substance, uh, vitamins and minerals according to that. Hey, which are the ones that I can take with food or without food? So this gives you another opportunity to take things when you're fasting. Another
Yes.
question you can ask yourself: fasting increases something called as autophagy, which is a fancy word to say how fast your cells are cleaning debris around and waste around your body. Are there any supplements that you're currently taking that can add to that specific effect that is going on in that 24-hour cycle? Ask yourself that question. That means that time of the day is where you have to associate supplements.
Yeah.
And for most people, if you're taking even like 25, that's just a higher limit, but like 20 to 25 supplements, if you just follow these rules, you will have to take a lot, but that's the only way around it. Because again, one thing that we said in the beginning of the podcast is our soil is not the same as before. The
Yes.
pollution is not the same as before. We were meant to sit under trees and count apples and like daydream.
We used
We're
to eat
Yeah,
much, so
we're
much
not
more
doing
roots and leaves and
exactly.
flowers and
Yeah,
seeds
there are
back
so
in the
many
days.
different wild
Mm.
plants that we don't have access to.
Yes.
But apart from that, I'm saying that we're meant to chill out in the day and look up and just move around and play. We should have more playtime. But is this that's not happening, right? You're spending more time doing Excel files, and you're more times doing like sales and transactions and calls and anticipations, and all of these things are bringing enormous amounts of stress in your body, which you didn't have before. So you didn't have to overcome that
Yes.
negative stress with supplementation. And trust me, no matter how many supplements you take, if you are sitting all day, you're stressed out, your body, you're over caffeinated, you're sleep deprived, and you're not
Exactly.
moving, none of the supplements that you take, they might be some sort of like a block till a certain time, but after you burn the candle at both ends, man, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
So I would also say, like Yara mentioned, start with those essential 5 things first. you know get some nice air, move around, get some vitamin D, then support it with some movement, and then support all of that with good whole
Nutrition.
foods,
Exactly.
nutrition, with good fiber, with proteins. And then comes the supplementation, because you cannot the pills are not going to make you live for long if you don't eat any food. So in order of things, and react with your environment, then get into the food based things. Make sure your food is solid. Then any deficiencies that your food might have, maybe you're following a paleo or a vegan or a keto diet, then it's time to add some supplementation.
Absolutely.
At that supplementation, you want to go above and beyond that. You still don't feel great, most people, and sleep well. You want to go above and beyond, then look at adaptogens and nootropics to give you that edge. Because also, the world proudly says that they're living in a rat race where everyone's priority is to be bigger, better, faster than the other person. That means the other person has to fail. And according to me, when you're in a rat race, the winner of the rat race is always a rat. So at the end of the day, we're trying to compete with each other on unrealistic terms. So for that, you need a little bit of supplementation. And if for that purpose, if you had to take 20 supplements, I would rather take 20 supplements and extend my lifetime than to be tired, fatigue, hormone less, libido less.
Yes, or just go into too much chemical medicines and drugs that we usually tend to
Oh yeah,
take
that
whenever
doesn't
we
help.
have. Yeah, exactly. We have a headache. Okay, we just pop down a normal pill.
Panadol.
Exactly, a
Yeah.
Panadol, instead of just standing up from the chair, getting out for a
Yeah.
walk, and breathing some fresh
No
air,
one's
just
asking that
listening to some.
question, that why are you
Yeah,
getting that headache in the
yeah,
first place.
exactly, exactly.
You're doing something for it.
Yes, yes,
And
yes. And then we cannot sleep, and then we get too much melatonin, or then we start getting Xanax. And yeah, this is usually the easiest reaction and the things that we tend to do, but it's not the
yeah,
first answer. We just need to
we need
uh,
to reverse
some
engineer it. I always
exactly.
tell people this, like, fixing things. Sometimes pharmaceuticals have their place. Like if you fell down and you got hurt and now it's paining like
Of
crazy,
course.
yeah, use it. But that's not the way it's meant to be forever. Have it for a while, then get on to some curcumin or some other things that will reduce inflammation quite a lot. Get into a sauna, do an
Yes.
ice bath. Things like this will naturally help you recover. Well, talking about saunas and ice bath, do you have some sort of a recovery protocol or some other protocol that you do?
Uh,
Saunas, ice bath, lights, etc.
so exactly in this one, I think you are the more professional, experienced one. I love ice baths and I love saunas, but generally speaking, in my daily routine, if I have to say, or weekly routine, if I have to say I do them on a daily basis, absolutely don't. Like I
Yeah,
just do not get enough of the chance or the options or the
yeah.
time.
Time is a very big factor.
So usually early in the morning, what I do is a very cold, freezing shower just to
Amazing.
really make wake me up.
Yeah,
And I know it's very hard and tough, but again, we live in a hot country, so it shouldn't really be that much
that hard.
of a hard challenge for us. But that helps, and usually being exposed to the cold water for at least like 2 to 3 minutes is the
Yeah.
minimum amount of time to really make sure that we really increase the blood flow, and that supports to give us energy for the whole day.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so right. And yeah, these are some other things that
And then
go above
finding,
and beyond. Like
yes,
you guys, the first order of operations are priorities. Like we said earlier, those are the first things you have to fix, and then you get onto a state where you can choose if you wanted to go to the sauna or the ice bath, but it's not necessary because you are already producing enough energy. So it should always be an option and not a forceful thing that, okay, if you're not going to go, something in your body is going to go wrong. That shouldn't be the case unless you're a pro athlete, and then things are completely different.
yes.
But yeah, we've been talking so much. Well, one of the things that I did not tell you guys on the podcast, that Kiara also is an entrepreneur. She has a company called Beauty Treats Co. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Beauty treats, yes.
Beauty Treats. So the Beauty Treats company. Now, tell us about it. What do you guys do?
So beauty treats really is the combination, a bit of everything that maybe we've been talking about also now, because it's basically bringing together good, clean, whole foods with supplements and antioxidants and superfoods. So this is basically a clean snack,
Mhm.
and that has, in this case, collagen and vitamin C. For now, we have only this first line of collagen cookies. So
Mhm.
basically, it's different flavors of cookies, and each flavor has different superfoods in it. But all of them, their main trait is that they have this collagen and vitamin C in it, because
Mhm.
they want to support the longevity of our tissues. So
Mhm.
our skin, our hair, our nails, and especially our gut as well.
Mhm.
And this is how it all kind of sort of started, if we want to
Yeah.
reverse engineer the process of how bt treats was born, because it was born just from my discovery of how collagen supported me back in
Mhm.
the days when I used to have loads of digestive issues,
Mhm.
and I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and then passing through different visits in hospitals. They were giving me a loads of medicines, and still the issue was not getting solved. And I know that the cause might have been related to many different issues, including stress as well.
Mhm.
But I've seen that digging deeper into, again, having the right foods, trying to de-stress more, and integrating with collagen along with other superfoods is what helped me the most. And all of this in a clean snack that, again, I was not able to find
Yeah.
around in the stores, because as you were saying, like, okay, protein bars, I love protein bars,
Yeah.
but again, there's so much process and
Yeah.
it's
So many
full in,
chemicals.
yes, in sugars and
Yeah.
and again, trans fats and seed oils, and so that's why it all came
Hmm.
out.
Interesting, because I've seen your Instagram and it looks beautiful. All the cookies, like they
Tasty.
look delicious. Even like you're looking at it from an Instagram channel and you still want to eat it. But
I have to bring you some next time, actually.
yeah, definitely, I'll try those. Where can people find it? What's the best way to for people
As of
to?
now, we have them on all different aggregators. On top of the store, we have them on InstaShop, Kareem, Deliveroo. So
Mhm.
this is where
Okay, so
we
if you're
have
in
them.
UAE, InstaShop, Kareem, Deliveroo, look for beauty treats, and you can order yourself a collagen-rich cookie along with a lot of superfood and vitamins that we've all been talking about. I didn't want to give you this right at the beginning of the podcast because we wanted to touch more nutritional base, but now you know that whatever Kiara said, she implemented that in a form of a company so that you don't have to get up and get a headache while you're in that meeting when your blood sugar crashes. These are all carefully
Absolutely.
designed products under the supervision of Kiara, and you can trust her to do a good job. So go ahead, guys, take some time. And if you guys order this, please, post it on your stories, tag me and Kiara in it, and we'd love to see how this was for you. But Kiara, this has been an absolute pleasure.
It was my pleasure,
It's
really.
been a very fascinating conversation. My last question to you is, if you had a time machine and you could reverse back time, you can go back to your younger self now. You don't have to tell
Hmm.
yourself about health and the benefits of collagen on the extracellular matrix and all of that stuff, and you could tell yourself about anything and everything. What would you tell yourself?
That's an interesting one.
Hmm.
If I could go back in time, what I would tell about myself is just honestly, it's just maybe follow your gut. Seriously,
Hmm. Okay.
follow your gut feeling
Yeah. Okay.
much more. And this
I
comes
would
back
take
to
that.
everything that we were talking about before. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, guys. There's a special energetic influence and intuitive influence and a lot of biochemical influence where some parts of your gut, your mitochondria, some other subcellular parts, they can process information faster, up to a few milliseconds faster than it could reach your brain. So there is we have programmed in this ancient sort of a way where sometimes our bodies react faster than our minds could ever get the signal, and then you can see this in
yeah.
a neuroscience lab. uh,
Because all our body is made like our brain is not only our brain, and we have many different brain centers throughout all our body, and that's
exactly.
why gut is one of them.
So, if you have that gut feeling, don't let anyone discourage you to say that, hey, that's nothing. Follow it and act on it because it's like a muscle. The more you squeeze it, the more stronger you get. And this is me, CJ, signing out from shiftwithcj.com. Kiara, again, thank you so much for all the good work you're doing.
Thank
Thank
you
you for
so
all the
much.
lives you've touched. We really appreciate it. And yeah, for me, have a great day, have a great week, have a great lifetime. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.